In the soft glow of ancient Greece, under the expansive skies and amidst the whisper of olive trees, lived a peculiar group of individuals, philosophers. Their days were not marked by the frenetic pace of modern life, but rather by a gentle rhythm of thought and conversation. Picture them wandering through the colonnades, their sandals brushing against the stone as they engaged in dialogues that flowed as naturally as the streams nearby. These thinkers shaped their lives around the pursuit of wisdom, weaving it seamlessly into their everyday existence. In the world of Greek philosophers, the act of thinking was rarely a solitary endeavor. Instead, it was a dynamic and communal experience, much like a continuous conversation with the world itself. As they walked the paths of their cities, their thoughts meandered with them, shaped by the environment and the people they encountered. This gentle interplay between mind and surroundings crafted a daily life that was as much about physical movement as it was about intellectual exploration. These philosophers were not isolated sages, but rather active participants in their communities. The city streets, bustling with life, provided a backdrop where ideas could be exchanged as freely as goods in the marketplace. Philosophy thrived in the open air, where the boundaries between public and private blurred into a shared pursuit of understanding. The agora, the vibrant heart of Greek civic life, became a stage for their inquiries, where passers-by might pause to listen and perhaps even join in the discourse. As the sun rose over the whitewashed buildings, casting long shadows on the ground, the philosophers began their day with a sense of purpose. The morning light, soft and welcoming, set the stage for thoughtful reflection. With each step they took, their minds aligned with the cadence of their feet, turning the act of walking into a meditative practice. It was in these moments of movement that ideas were born, nurtured by the rhythm of the world around them. Each philosopher carried within them a unique blend of curiosity and humility. They were aware that the pursuit of wisdom was a journey without a definitive destination. It was a path walked not to reach an end, but to experience the richness of the questions along the way. This understanding allowed them to embrace uncertainty, to see it not as a barrier, but as an invitation to explore further. Thus, their lives unfolded like an ever-expanding tapestry, woven with threads of conversation, observation, and contemplation. The daily life of a Greek philosopher was simple, yet profoundly fulfilling. Their homes were modest, reflecting a lifestyle that valued thought over material wealth. In these humble abodes, filled with scrolls and simple furnishings, ideas were given room to breathe and grow. The absence of luxury was not a deprivation, but a conscious choice to focus on the essentials of living and thinking well. As the day progressed, the philosophers often gathered with others, creating spaces where dialogue could flourish. These gatherings were informal, yet they held a sacred quality, a shared commitment to the pursuit of truth. Here, in the presence of peers, ideas were tested, challenged, and refined. Conversation was not a battleground, but a garden where thoughts were planted and nurtured, each voice adding to the richness of the discourse. To live as a philosopher in ancient Greece was to engage in a dance with the world, a gentle swaying between the mind and the environment. It was a life defined not by grand declarations, but by the quiet accumulation of insights gathered over time. Each small observation, each thoughtful exchange, contributed to a deeper understanding of existence itself. As the sun set, Drawing the day to a close, the philosophers would retreat into the quietude of the evening. It was a time for reflection, a chance to let the day's conversation settle like leaves on a still pond. In these moments of solitude, the thoughts of the day could be gently sifted, their meaning distilled into a clearer, more focused form. This was the life of a Greek philosopher, a life lived in harmony with the world, where walking, talking, and teaching were as natural as breathing. Through their daily routines, they sought not only to understand the world, but to find their place within it. And in doing so, they left a legacy that continues to inspire the wandering minds of today. In the ancient world of Greece, where the sun cast long shadows over white stone buildings and olive groves, a few individuals found themselves drawn to a life of contemplation and inquiry. Yet, this was not a path open to all. The boundaries of who could become a philosopher were shaped as much by societal structures as by personal inclination. In the bustling city-states, citizenship held profound significance, conferring a sense of identity and belonging. To be a citizen was to share in the rights and responsibilities of the polis, the city-state. Yet, the privilege of citizenship was not universal. It was reserved predominantly for free-born men, native to the city, while women, slaves, and foreigners often found themselves excluded from this civic circle. This delineation of citizenship created a societal framework within which philosophy could emerge, as those who were citizens had the capacity to engage fully in the public and intellectual life of their communities. Leisure, too, played a pivotal role in the philosophical pursuits of ancient Greece. It was a luxury not afforded to all, but rather to those who had the means to step back from the demands of daily toil. For philosophy to flourish, time was required. Time to think, to converse, to question. This leisure was often a product of economic stability, allowing certain individuals the freedom to ponder the mysteries of existence without the pressing need to labor for their daily sustenance. It was within these moments of leisure that philosophical thoughts could take root and grow. Education further set the stage for the development of philosophical thought. In a society that valued knowledge and the art of rhetoric, education was a crucial component of a young citizen's upbringing. The study of reading, writing, music, and physical training provided a foundation for intellectual exploration. Those who were educated had the tools necessary to engage with complex ideas, to dissect arguments, and to communicate effectively. However, access to such education was not evenly distributed. It was predominantly the preserve of the affluent, those who could afford tutors and schools, thereby reinforcing the link between social status and the opportunity to pursue philosophy. Social status itself was a defining factor in determining who could embark on the philosophical journey. The upper echelons of society, those with influence and wealth, were often in a position to explore philosophical questions. Their status afforded them both the time and the resources to engage in such endeavors. In contrast, those lower in the social hierarchy, without the same financial stability or societal standing, found fewer opportunities to delve into the abstract world of philosophy. As we consider these societal conditions, we observe how the interplay between citizenship, leisure, education, and social status created an environment ripe for philosophical inquiry. It was within this delicate balance that individuals could step beyond the ordinary concerns of life and into the realm of thought. The quiet accumulation of these factors over time allowed certain individuals to ponder the nature of existence, to question the world around them, and to seek understanding in a way that was uniquely their own. In the stillness of reflection, we find that the pursuit of philosophy in ancient Greece was not merely an intellectual endeavor, but a product of the societal tapestry from which it emerged. It invites us to consider how the structures of our own world might shape the possibilities for thought and exploration, gently reminding us of the quiet influence of our surroundings on the life of the mind. In the sunlit world of classical Greece, the journey from childhood to adulthood unfolded with deliberate care. The early years of a young Greek were marked by a gentle immersion into a world of knowledge and skill, gradually preparing them for the responsibilities of public life. This education was not simply a matter of acquiring facts or mastering skills. It was about shaping the mind and body in harmony, fostering a sense of balance that would serve them throughout their lives. Reading, for example, was not merely a practical skill. It was an introduction to the vast world of stories and ideas that had been passed down through generations. Young Greeks were taught to approach texts with patience and respect, seeing each scroll as a doorway to wisdom. Through reading, they encountered the myths and histories that formed the backbone of their culture, learning to see themselves as part of a larger narrative. This gradual accumulation of knowledge helped to ground them, providing a sense of identity and continuity. Music, too, played a vital role in their education, though it was not pursued for entertainment alone. It was believed that music had the power to refine the soul, to teach harmony and rhythm not just in sound, but in life itself. Young students would learn to play instruments and sing, engaging with the melodies that echoed through their homes and public spaces. The practice of music required discipline and focus, qualities that would serve them well in other areas of life. Over time, these musical lessons quietly shaped their character, fostering a sense of beauty and order. Physical training was another essential component of their education. The Greeks placed great importance on the well-being of the body, seeing it as inseparable from the mind. Young people would spend their mornings in the gymnasium, engaging in exercises that developed strength, agility, and endurance. This training was not only about cultivating physical prowess, it was about understanding the limits and capabilities of one's own body, learning to push those limits with care and respect. As they grew stronger, they also grew more confident, ready to face the challenges of public life with poise and assurance. Rhetoric, the art of persuasion, was perhaps the most critical skill for those destined for public life. From a young age, children were taught to speak clearly and persuasively, to structure their thoughts logically and present them with conviction. This was not about manipulating others, but about engaging with them, sharing ideas, and participating in the civic life of the community. Through practice and guidance, they learned to express themselves with clarity and precision, developing a voice that would be heard in the assemblies and courts. Over time, these skills became second nature, allowing them to contribute to the debates and discussions that shaped their world. The education of young Greeks was a gradual, unfolding process, one that emphasized the development of the whole person. Each lesson, whether in reading, music, physical training, or rhetoric, was a stepping stone toward the broader goal of becoming a well-rounded individual, capable of contributing to society. This education was not rushed or hurried. It unfolded at a pace that allowed for deep understanding and reflection. Through these years of careful preparation, young Greeks were quietly transformed. They emerged from their education not only with knowledge and skills, but with a sense of purpose and belonging. They were ready to step into the world of adults, to take their place in the life of the city, and to participate in the ongoing dialogue of their culture. In this way, their early education set the foundation for a lifetime of learning and growth, a journey that would continue long after their formal schooling had ended. In the gentle hum of an ancient city, there existed a way of learning that was as natural as breathing. It was a process that unfolded not in silence, but in the ebb and flow of conversation. Here, in the spaces between words, philosophers sought understanding through dialogue. This was not a solitary pursuit, but a collective journey, one that embraced the art of questioning and listening with equal measure. In the heart of this dialogue was a method that valued the question above the answer. To question was to explore, to open a door to new possibilities. It was a way of peeling back the layers of an idea, revealing its essence slowly and thoughtfully. This method invited participants to engage deeply, to think critically, and to express their thoughts with clarity and precision. It was an exercise in patience, where ideas were allowed to breathe and grow. Listening was no less important than speaking. In fact, it was through listening that one truly engaged with the ideas of others. To listen was to respect, to acknowledge the value of another's thoughts and perspectives. This was a skill cultivated with care, for it required the listener to set aside their own biases and assumptions, to be open to the possibility of change. Through listening, philosophers learned to refine their own ideas, to sharpen their understanding, and to see the world from different angles. As conversations unfolded, they often took unexpected turns. A simple question could lead to a cascade of new inquiries, each one building upon the last. This was a process of gradual refinement, where ideas were not carved in stone, but shaped like clay. Each dialogue was an opportunity to test assumptions, to challenge what was taken for granted, and to explore the unknown. This was philosophy in its most dynamic form, a living dialogue that evolved over time. The gradual refinement of ideas was a hallmark of this approach. It was a process that respected the complexity of thought, acknowledging that understanding was not a destination, but a journey. As ideas were discussed and debated, they took on new forms, becoming more nuanced and sophisticated. This was a gentle evolution, one that unfolded at its own pace, free from the pressure of immediate resolution. In these dialogues, there was a quiet recognition that certainty was elusive. Instead, philosophers embraced the ambiguity of life, finding comfort in the unending pursuit of knowledge. This was a pursuit that valued the process over the outcome, the journey over the destination. It was a way of thinking that was both humble and profound, recognizing that every answer was but a stepping stone to new questions. The conversations themselves were varied, taking place in a multitude of settings. Whether in the bustling agora, the serene gardens, or the shaded colonnades, dialogue was a thread that wove through the fabric of daily life. These discussions were informal, often spontaneous, yet deeply meaningful. They were a testament to the belief that wisdom was not confined to the classroom, but could be found in the simple act of conversation. Through this gentle unfolding of dialogue, philosophy revealed its true nature. It was not a rigid doctrine or a collection of facts, but a living, breathing practice. It was an invitation to engage with the world, to see it with fresh eyes, and to continually seek understanding. In the end, learning through conversation was an act of connection, a reminder that, in the pursuit of knowledge, we are never truly alone. In the heart of classical Greece, the daily life of a philosopher was often characterized by simplicity and modesty. Unlike their more affluent compatriots who resided in opulent villas adorned with fine mosaics and lush gardens, philosophers typically inhabited more humble abodes. These living spaces were neither grand nor elaborate, reflecting a life focused more on the cultivation of the mind than on material wealth. Philosophers often found themselves living in simple homes, structures that were functional rather than decorative. These homes were typically built around a central courtyard, an open space that allowed light and air to filter through the living quarters. The courtyard served as a modest sanctuary, a place where one could reflect quietly amidst the gentle rustle of leaves or the soft chirping of birds. Here the philosopher might sit, pondering the nature of existence or the intricacies of human thought, surrounded by the quietude of his surroundings. In these homes, rooms were sparsely furnished with the essentials for daily living. A small bed, a wooden table, and a few stools might be all that occupied these spaces. The simplicity of the furnishings allowed the mind to focus, unburdened by the distractions of luxury. Shelves might hold a few scrolls, the written thoughts of other thinkers, inviting contemplation and study in the quiet hours. The walls, bare and unadorned, provided a blank canvas for the mind to paint its own visions and ideas. For some philosophers, life in a simple home was not an option due to financial constraints. Instead, they resided in rented rooms, often in bustling parts of the city. These rooms, though small, afforded the philosopher a place to rest and think, even amidst the lively sounds of the city. The clatter of pots from nearby kitchens, the calls of street vendors, and the laughter of passing citizens created a backdrop against which the mind could wander. Shared spaces were another common living arrangement for those devoted to a life of philosophical inquiry. Living communally with peers or students fostered an environment ripe for discussion and exchange of ideas. In these shared quarters, conversations flowed easily, often continuing long into the evening. The sharing of meals and daily routines created a sense of camaraderie, a shared journey in the pursuit of wisdom and understanding. The modesty of these living conditions was not solely a matter of necessity. For many philosophers, choosing to live simply was a reflection of their values. In a society where wealth and power were often equated with success, philosophers found contentment in the richness of thought and the pursuit of truth. The absence of luxury allowed them to focus on the essentials, to question and explore without the distractions of opulence. Living in such a manner also underscored a philosophical principle that true happiness and fulfillment were not bound to material possessions. The philosophers of Greece often viewed the pursuit of wealth as a potential hindrance to the pursuit of knowledge. By living modestly, they demonstrated that a life of thought and reflection required little in the way of physical comforts. In these modest settings, philosophers found the freedom to engage deeply with their thoughts and with the world around them. The simplicity of their living conditions mirrored the simplicity they sought in their thinking, stripping away the complexities of life to reveal the underlying truths. It was in these unassuming homes and rented rooms that ideas were born, nurtured by the quiet and the solitude. The choice of where to live also influenced the philosopher's daily routine. Those residing in the city were closely connected to the vibrant life of the agora, the bustling marketplace that was as much a center of social interaction as it was of commerce. Here, surrounded by the hum of daily transactions, philosophers could observe the myriad interactions of human life, each encounter offering new insights into the complexities of society and human nature. In contrast, those living on the outskirts of the city, or in quieter neighborhoods, found solace in the peace that such locations afforded. Away from the immediate hubbub of urban life, these philosophers could reflect in tranquility, their thoughts uninterrupted by the noise of everyday life. The slower pace of life in these areas allowed for a measured contemplation, a gentle unfolding of ideas nurtured by the quiet environment. Despite the simplicity of their living conditions, philosophers often maintained a sense of dignity and purpose. Their homes, though modest, were places of great intellectual activity. It was here that they entertained students and visitors, sharing their thoughts and engaging in discussions that ranged from the mundane to the profound. The modesty of their surroundings did not diminish the importance of these interactions. Rather, it highlighted the value of the ideas being exchanged. In these spaces, the philosopher was both host and participant in a continuous dialogue with those who sought to learn and understand. The setting may have been humble, but the conversations were rich and varied, each word contributing to the tapestry of knowledge being woven within those walls. As night fell and the city grew quiet, the philosopher's home became a sanctuary of reflection and rest. The day's conversations and contemplations quietly settled, leaving room for introspection and the gentle drift of thoughts as sleep approached. In these moments, the philosopher found peace in the simplicity of his surroundings, knowing that the pursuit of knowledge was a journey that required little more than a curious mind and a quiet place to think. Thus, in the modest homes and rented rooms of ancient Greece, philosophers lived lives of thoughtful simplicity. Their surroundings, though unassuming, were the backdrop to a rich life of inquiry and reflection. These were places where ideas flourished, nurtured by the quiet and the simplicity of a life devoted to the exploration of thought. As the first light of dawn gently touched the rooftops of the city, a Greek philosopher would find himself waking to a world that was slowly coming alive. The air, still cool from the night, carried the faint sounds of distant voices and the soft rustle of leaves stirred by a mild breeze. It was a time of transition, where the quiet solitude of the night gave way to the bustling rhythm of the day. In these early hours, the philosopher embraced a moment of personal reflection. Lying in a simple bed, perhaps with only a thin cloak for warmth, he would allow his thoughts to wander. This time before the city fully awoke was precious, offering clarity and stillness. It was a space for contemplation, where ideas could surface without the distractions of the day. The philosopher might ponder questions that had lingered in his mind, exploring them with the gentle curiosity that characterized his life. Rising from his rest, he would perform modest ablutions, refreshing himself with water drawn from a nearby well. The coolness of the water on his skin was invigorating, a gentle nudge from nature to prepare for the day ahead. This simple act connected him to the world around him, a reminder of the elements that sustained life. Dressing was an uncomplicated affair. A plain tunic, draped in a manner both practical and comfortable, was all that was needed. In these garments, the philosopher found freedom from the distractions of vanity, allowing him to focus on the more profound pursuits of the mind. The clothing served its purpose without fanfare, a testament to the philosopher's preference for simplicity. With his attire in place, the philosopher would move to a quiet corner of his dwelling, perhaps a small room or a shaded courtyard. Here, he would engage in a brief period of meditation or quiet thought, grounding himself before venturing into the world. This practice was not one of elaborate rituals, but rather a gentle settling of the mind, a way to align his thoughts with the intentions of the day. As the city gradually filled with the sounds of merchants setting up stalls and citizens beginning their daily tasks, the philosopher would consider his own role within this vibrant tapestry. His work was not of a physical nature, but of the intellect, engaging with ideas and dialogues that shaped the understanding of those around him. The anticipation of these interactions, however, required a certain mental readiness, a preparedness to listen as much as to speak. Before stepping into the public eye, the philosopher might take a moment to consider the questions he hoped to explore that day. These were not rigid objectives, but rather gentle prompts to guide his conversations. The philosopher understood that wisdom lay not in having all the answers, but in the pursuit of thoughtful inquiry, the kind that invited others to join in the exploration. The city itself was an integral part of this morning routine. Its streets and squares served as both backdrop and participant in the philosopher's life. As he prepared to leave his home, he felt the subtle hum of the city, a living entity with its own rhythm and pulse. The philosopher was aware of his place within this larger organism, a single thread in the intricate fabric of urban life. Stepping out of his abode, he was greeted by the early morning light, which cast a gentle glow across the cityscape. The streets, still relatively quiet, offered a brief window of peace before the full activity of the day commenced. The philosopher took a moment to absorb the scene, allowing the tranquility of the morning to settle within him. With each step, he felt the cobblestones beneath his sandals, a tactile connection to the city he called home. The pathway ahead was familiar, yet each day presented subtle variations, small changes that gradually altered the landscape. The philosopher observed these shifts with a sense of curiosity, understanding that change, however gradual, was a constant companion. As he walked, he might encounter fellow citizens beginning their own routines. A nod or a brief greeting was exchanged, acknowledging the shared experience of morning. These interactions, though fleeting, were a reminder of the community that surrounded him, a network of individuals, each contributing to the life of the city. The philosopher's destination was often a public space, perhaps a shaded colonnade or a quiet corner of the agora. These were places where he could engage with others in conversation, exploring ideas in the company of those who were equally curious. The journey to these spaces was as much a part of the philosopher's routine as the discussions that followed. Walking allowed his thoughts to flow, the rhythm of his steps mirroring the cadence of his ideas. As he arrived at his chosen spot, the city was fully awake, its sounds and sights forming a backdrop to the day's activities. The philosopher took a moment to appreciate the scene, knowing that this was where his thoughts would take shape, where dialogues would unfold. It was here, in the heart of the city, that the philosopher found his purpose, participating in the ongoing conversation of life. In these early hours, the philosopher had transitioned from introspection to engagement, from the quiet of his dwelling to the vibrant energy of the city. This morning routine, simple yet profound, was a reflection of the balance he sought in all things. It was a gentle unfolding, a preparation for the day's explorations, grounded in the understanding that the journey was as meaningful as the destination. The rhythmic sound of sandals on stone, a gentle cadence accompanying the quiet musings of a philosopher as he meandered through the winding streets of a sunlit city. Walking in this ancient world was more than mere movement from one place to another. It was a practice, an integral part of the thinking process. The streets, gardens, and shaded colonnades were not just thoroughfares or spaces of repose, but arenas of contemplation. Each step seemed to unlock a new thought, one footfall leading to another, one idea gently unfolding into the next. In these moments, the philosopher might find himself in the company of others, perhaps a fellow thinker or an inquisitive listener, the dialogue flowing as naturally as the paths they tread. The physical act of walking facilitated a mental journey, the gentle pace encouraging thoughts to emerge slowly, with clarity and purpose. Unlike the solitary scholar, confined to a study, the philosopher embraced the world as his classroom. The air, filled with the scent of olive and cypress, seemed to inspire a certain expansiveness of mind, where ideas could be aired, challenged, and refined. As the philosopher walked, the city around him was alive with its own rhythm. Merchants setting up stalls, children playing in the dust, the distant hum of conversation, each sound a subtle reminder of the world that surrounded and supported his thoughts. Yet, within this lively setting, there existed a profound sense of calm. No urgency disturbed the flow of ideas, no rush to reach a destination. The journey itself was the goal, each step an opportunity to delve deeper into the intricacies of thought. The philosopher might wander through a garden, the quiet rustle of leaves offering a gentle backdrop to his musings. In the shade of olive groves, he could ponder questions of existence and virtue, the natural world providing a comforting constancy. Here, amidst the greenery, ideas could take root and grow, nurtured by the tranquil environment. The garden was a place of balance, where the harmony of nature mirrored the philosopher's search for understanding. The colonnades, with their cool shadows and open vistas, offered another setting for contemplation. As the philosopher strolled beneath these ancient structures, the symmetry and order of the columns seemed to inspire a similar orderliness in thought. Here, the philosopher might engage in dialogue with a companion, the measured pace of their walk matched by the steady exchange of ideas. This was not debate for the sake of victory, but a shared exploration, where each participant sought to illuminate the path for the other. Through the city's bustling agora, the philosopher's walk might take him, the lively marketplace a testament to human ingenuity and exchange. Yet, even amidst this activity, there was space for reflection. The philosopher, while aware of the commerce that surrounded him, remained focused on the ideas that occupied his mind. The agora, with its mix of voices and activity, was a reminder of the interconnectedness of thought and life, where philosophy could not be divorced from the world in which it existed. In these various settings, the philosopher's walk was a thread that connected different aspects of his life. Each environment offered its own insights, its own opportunities for reflection. The act of walking provided a rhythm, a continuity that allowed thoughts to flow unimpeded. This gentle movement through the world mirrored the philosopher's journey through ideas, each step a part of a larger, ongoing process. Over time, the philosopher's walks became a tapestry of experience and knowledge, a living record of his engagement with the world. The paths he walked were not just physical routes, but journeys through the landscape of thought. Each walk added layers to his understanding, a quiet accumulation of insights that shaped his philosophy. In this way, walking and thinking were entwined, each enriching the other in a seamless dance of movement and mind. As the day progressed and the sun began its slow descent, the philosopher's steps might lead him to a quiet spot where he could pause and reflect on the thoughts that had emerged during his walk. Here, in the gentle light of evening, the ideas could settle, finding their place within the larger framework of his understanding. The walk, though it had ended, continued to resonate, the thoughts set in motion still unfolding in the quiet of his mind. In this practice, there was no hurry, no pressure to reach conclusions or definitive answers. The philosopher, through his walks, embraced the journey itself as the true destination. In the gentle pace of his steps, he found a space for contemplation, where the complexities of thought could be considered with patience and care. Walking and thinking in this ancient world were not separate activities but parts of a harmonious whole, each enriching the other in the philosopher's quest for wisdom. In the heart of ancient Greek cities, the bustle of daily life unfolded amidst a backdrop of vibrant public spaces. These were not just centers of commerce or social gatherings, but the very arenas where philosophy was shared and shaped. The agora, with its open expanse, served as a focal point for such exchanges. Here, beneath the wide sky, philosophers would meander among stalls and gatherings, their voices weaving through the hum of traders and townsfolk. It was a place of convergence, where ideas could be exchanged as freely as goods. The agora was more than a marketplace. It was a crucible of thought. Its openness allowed philosophers to engage with a diverse audience, each conversation a potential spark for deeper understanding. In these settings, a simple question could ripple into a profound dialogue, inviting both speaker and listener to explore the boundaries of their knowledge. The presence of different perspectives, mingling and merging, created an environment ripe for intellectual growth. Beyond the agora, gymnasia offered another venue for philosophical discourse. These spaces, primarily associated with physical training, were also hubs of intellectual activity. The Greeks valued the harmony of body and mind, and the gymnasium provided a setting where both could be nurtured. Here, amidst the rhythmic practice of exercises, conversations about ethics, virtue, and the nature of the good life found their place. The very act of physical exertion seemed to complement the mental effort required for philosophical inquiry, as if the movement of limbs mirrored the movement of thought. Open courtyards, too, witnessed the gentle flow of philosophical teaching. These spaces, often nestled within the city's quieter corners, allowed for a more intimate exchange of ideas. In the shade of ancient trees, philosophers and their followers could gather in small groups, the rustling leaves a soft accompaniment to their discussions. In these settings, the focus was on listening as much as speaking, fostering an atmosphere of mutual exploration. The simplicity of the surroundings encouraged a clarity of thought unburdened by the distractions of the bustling city. In each of these public places, philosophy was not a solitary pursuit. It was a shared endeavor interwoven with the fabric of everyday life. The presence of onlookers, whether curious or indifferent, added an element of unpredictability to each session. A passer-by might pause to listen, perhaps drawn by the cadence of a voice or the allure of an unfamiliar idea. In this way, public teaching became an invitation to engage, a subtle challenge to think beyond the confines of one's own experience. The act of teaching in public spaces also highlighted the accessibility of philosophy. It was not confined to the privileged few or hidden behind the walls of exclusive institutions. Instead, it unfolded in the open, inviting all who were willing to listen. This openness reflected a fundamental belief in the power of dialogue to illuminate truth, a belief that resonated deeply within Greek culture. Through conversation, individuals could navigate the complexities of human existence, guided by the shared wisdom of the community. Amidst the daily rhythms of city life, the presence of philosophers served as a reminder of the potential for deeper understanding. Their discussions, though rooted in the particulars of the present moment, often reached far beyond, touching on timeless questions of existence and morality. In this way, the public teaching of philosophy became a bridge, connecting the immediate with the eternal, the personal with the universal. The gentle interplay of voices in these public places echoed the broader harmony sought by philosophers. It was a harmony not of agreement, but of exploration, where differing views could coexist and enrich the collective pursuit of knowledge. Each conversation was an opportunity to refine ideas, to challenge assumptions, and to embrace the complexity of the world. In the quiet moments between discussions, as the day carried on around them, philosophers would reflect on the insights gained. The public nature of their teaching meant that these insights were not theirs alone, but part of a larger tapestry of understanding. This communal aspect of learning underscored the interconnectedness of all things, a theme central to much of Greek thought. Even as the sun dipped low and the shadows lengthened, the flow of conversation continued, weaving through the spaces where philosophy found its voice. In these moments, the boundaries between teacher and student blurred, and the essence of learning revealed itself as a continuous, shared journey. Through the simple act of engaging with others, the ancient philosophers demonstrated the enduring value of dialogue, a value that remains as relevant today as it was in their time. In the gentle embrace of ancient Greece, the life of a philosopher was surrounded not by solitude, but by a quiet company. These were times when learning was not a pursuit confined to solitary study, but a shared journey, undertaken with companions who brought their own questions to the fore. The philosopher's life was intertwined with the presence of students and followers, each contributing to the tapestry of thought that unfurled across the ages. In this landscape of shared inquiry, the philosopher was rarely alone. Instead, one could imagine them amidst a small group, gathered not in formal settings, but in places where minds could roam freely. These were not lecture halls, but rather open spaces, perhaps the shaded corners of a garden or the quietude of a colonnade, where ideas could be exchanged with ease. It was here that students and followers would gather, drawn by the magnetism of inquiry and the promise of understanding. These groups were informal, yet they held a certain structure, shaped by the dynamics of dialogue. Loyal companions were often present, individuals who had committed themselves to the philosopher's journey, sharing in the discoveries and the uncertainties alike. Their loyalty was not born of obligation, but of a shared desire to uncover truths, however elusive they might be. These companions provided a continuity of thought, a consistent thread that wove through the days and seasons. Among the companions, there were those who approached with skepticism. These followers did not accept ideas at face value, but rather questioned and probed, seeking clarity through doubt. Their presence was not disruptive but enriching, as their challenges prompted deeper reflection and refinement of thought. In many ways, skeptics played a crucial role, ensuring that ideas were robust enough to withstand scrutiny. They were the gentle agitators of the intellectual world, stirring the waters so that clarity might emerge. In the midst of this gathering, there were also the challengers. These individuals brought with them a spirit of debate, eager to test the boundaries of established ideas. They were not content with passive acceptance, but sought to push the limits, to see how far an idea could stretch before it bent or broke. Their challenges were not confrontational, rather they were part of the natural ebb and flow of dialogue. Through this, both the philosopher and their followers learned to appreciate the beauty of disagreement as a means to uncover deeper truths. The philosopher, in turn, was a guide more than a teacher in the traditional sense. Their role was not to impart knowledge as an absolute, but to foster an environment where questions could lead the way. They encouraged exploration, urging their followers to consider multiple perspectives and to engage with the world and its myriad complexities. In this way, the philosopher was both a leader and a participant in the dialogue, learning alongside their companions and valuing their insights. Such was the dynamic of these informal gatherings, where learning was not a passive activity, but an active exploration. The philosopher's circle was a living organism, constantly evolving as new ideas were introduced and old ones were re-examined. Each participant brought their own experiences and insights, enriching the collective understanding with their unique perspectives. It was a collaborative journey, where the destination was not a fixed point, but an ever-unfolding horizon. Through quiet conversations and thoughtful exchanges, these groups cultivated a sense of community. There was a shared understanding that the pursuit of knowledge was a lifelong endeavor, one that required patience, humility, and an openness to change. In this setting, the philosopher's influence was not one of authority, but of inspiration, gently guiding the group towards greater awareness and appreciation of the complexities of life. In this way, the philosopher's life was a testament to the power of collective thought. The presence of students and followers was not merely an accompaniment, but an integral part of the philosopher's journey. Their shared pursuit of learning was a reminder that understanding is not achieved in isolation, but through the interplay of ideas, the exchange of perspectives, and the gentle challenge of skepticism. As the sun set on another day in ancient Greece, the philosopher and their followers would part ways, each carrying with them the seeds of new ideas, ready to be nurtured and explored further. The dialogue might pause, but it never truly ended, continuing in the quiet moments of reflection and the gentle rhythms of daily life. In this way, the philosopher's legacy was not confined to their own thoughts, but lived on in the minds of those who walked alongside them, each contributing to the ever-growing tapestry of human understanding. In the gentle light of ancient Greece, the act of debate held a significant place in the life of a philosopher. It was a practice less concerned with victory and more with the pursuit of truth. Philosophers engaged in debate not as an adversarial contest, but as a shared journey of discovery. The aim was to refine ideas, test assumptions, and ultimately gain a deeper understanding of the world. In this setting, argumentation was not about proving oneself right, but rather about exploring different perspectives. A philosopher might begin with a statement, carefully articulated, and then invite others to examine it. This invitation was extended with the understanding that through questioning, one could reveal the strengths and weaknesses of an argument. It was a process of mutual enlightenment, where each participant contributed to the unfolding of knowledge. The method of dialectic, as it was called, involved a series of questions and answers. Through this back-and-forth dialogue, participants sought clarity and precision. It was a slow, deliberate process, requiring patience and open-mindedness. The questions posed were not designed to trap or confuse, but to uncover assumptions and explore contradictions. In this manner, beliefs were not simply accepted, but rigorously tested. Consider the philosopher Socrates, who famously employed this method. His approach was not to impart wisdom, but to draw it out from others. By asking probing questions, he encouraged people to think more deeply about their own views. This often led to the realization that what was assumed to be known was, in fact, more complex than first thought. Such conversations were not always comfortable, but they were essential for intellectual growth. The art of persuasion also played a role in philosophical debate. However, persuasion was not about manipulating opinions, but about presenting arguments in a clear and logical manner. A well-articulated argument could inspire others to reconsider their positions. This required not only a firm grasp of logic and reasoning, but also an understanding of one's audience. Philosophers needed to be attentive listeners, sensitive to the nuances of dialogue, to effectively communicate their ideas. In these debates, certainty was often elusive. Philosophers recognized that many questions did not have definitive answers. Instead, the process of debate was valued for the insight it provided, rather than for reaching a final conclusion. This acceptance of uncertainty fostered a culture of continuous inquiry, where the search for knowledge was never complete. The role of debate extended beyond the confines of philosophical circles. It permeated the broader society, influencing public discourse and civic life. Philosophers engaged with citizens in the agora, the bustling marketplace of ideas, where debates could be overheard by those passing by. In these public spaces, philosophical dialogue was woven into the fabric of daily life, contributing to the intellectual vibrancy of the city. This openness to debate also encouraged diversity of thought. Different schools of philosophy, each with its distinct perspectives, coexisted and interacted. While they might disagree on fundamental principles, the shared commitment to dialogue allowed for a rich exchange of ideas. This plurality was a source of strength, fostering innovation and creativity in philosophical thought. In the quiet aftermath of debate, reflection played an equally important role. Philosophers would take time to ponder the discussions, to contemplate the insights gained, and to reassess their own beliefs. This reflection was integral to the philosophical process, allowing ideas to mature and evolve. It was a period of intellectual solitude, complementing the social aspect of debate. Through this cyclical process of debate and reflection, philosophy thrived in ancient Greece. It was a practice that valued the journey of questioning over the destination of certainty. In this way, debate was more than a tool. It was a way of life, a continuous exploration of the human experience. The legacy of this approach endures, reminding us of the importance of dialogue in the pursuit of wisdom. In the quiet rhythm of daily life for a Greek philosopher, food and drink assumed a humble yet significant role. Meals were not merely sustenance, but a reflection of one's philosophical beliefs. Embracing simplicity, many philosophers approached eating with a measured restraint, viewing nourishment as a means to an end rather than an indulgence. The act of dining was an opportunity to practice moderation, a virtue highly regarded in many schools of thought. Imagine a simple meal laid out on a wooden table. There might be bread, a staple made from barley or wheat, accompanied by a modest portion of olives or figs. Cheese, perhaps from goat or sheep's milk, could add variety, while a drizzle of honey might offer a touch of sweetness. This was a typical repast, uncomplicated and sincere, encouraging reflection on what was truly necessary for the body. The preference for plain meals was more than a lifestyle choice, it was a statement of philosophy. Many thinkers, such as the Stoics and Cynics, believed in living in accordance with nature, which often translated into a diet free from excess. By rejecting lavish feasts, they sought to cultivate self-discipline, viewing the control of appetite as a way to strengthen the mind. Abstinence from extravagant dishes was an exercise in self-control, reinforcing the notion that pleasure should not dictate one's actions. In drinking, too, there was a pursuit of balance. Water was the most common beverage, and yet wine, diluted with water, played a part in daily life. Unlike the excesses of a symposium, everyday drinking was subdued. Philosophers would argue that wine, when consumed in moderation, could encourage conviviality and aid digestion. However, to overindulge was to risk losing one's grip on reason, a quality they prized above all. Through this lens, the pleasures of the table became a microcosm of the broader philosophical pursuit. By consciously choosing simplicity, philosophers demonstrated a commitment to their ideals, illustrating how the mind could govern desires. This approach was not merely about denial, but about finding satisfaction in less, understanding that true pleasure lay in the absence of want rather than its fulfillment. This emphasis on moderation extended beyond meals to the broader concept of pleasure. Epicurus, often misunderstood as a hedonist, advocated for simple pleasures and the avoidance of pain rather than indulgence in excess. For him, the highest pleasure was the absence of disturbance, a state achieved through the satisfaction of basic needs and the cultivation of friendships. In the same vein, the Cynics took an even more austere approach. They practiced asceticism, often living with minimal possessions and eating only what was necessary to survive. For them, virtue was found in self-sufficiency and independence from societal norms. By living simply, they challenged the conventions of wealth and status, demonstrating that happiness was not contingent on material abundance. The philosophers' views on food and drink can be seen as an extension of their broader quest for self-mastery. By exercising control over their appetites, they sought to free themselves from the distractions of the corporeal world, allowing for clearer thought and deeper understanding. This disciplined approach to life encouraged reflection on what truly constituted a good life. In the gentle routines of their daily existence, the act of eating became a moment of contemplation. Each meal was an opportunity to practice what they preached, an exercise in aligning their actions with their beliefs. By valuing simplicity, they found a certain freedom, an ability to enjoy life without the burden of excess. As you consider these practices, imagine how they might translate into modern life. The principles of moderation and simplicity remain relevant, offering a pathway to mindfulness in an age of abundance. Through the lens of these ancient thinkers, we are invited to reflect on our own choices, to find contentment in balance, and to appreciate the quiet pleasures of a simple meal. In contemplating the role of food and drink in the life of a Greek philosopher, one is reminded of the enduring wisdom in their approach. Their commitment to moderation, both in sustenance and in spirit, offers timeless insights into the pursuit of a life well lived. With each humble meal, they demonstrated that simplicity could be a profound form of sophistication, a testament to the enduring power of thought over desire. In the gentle pause of midday, when the sun reached its zenith and the city's hum softened, philosophers found respite in moments of quietude. This was a time for retreat, when the bustling agora and lively debates were exchanged for the solitude of personal reflection. Within these hours, the mind was free to wander through the scrolls of knowledge, unhurried by the demands of conversation or the need for immediate response. In a modest room, perhaps shaded by a simple curtain, a philosopher might unroll a papyrus scroll, its faint musty scent mingling with the warm air. Here, words written by others long gone provided a bridge to distant thoughts. These scrolls, laboriously copied by hand, were treasures of insight, preserving the wisdom of predecessors and the seeds of future ideas. Reading was a careful, deliberate act, allowing the philosopher to journey through complex treatises and lyrical poetry alike, each line a step deeper into understanding. Writing, too, was a companion in these tranquil hours. With a reed pen in hand, dipped in ink crafted from soot and water, thoughts were carefully inscribed on parchment or wax tablets. It was an act of both creation and contemplation, as the philosopher distilled the morning's reflections into coherent form. Each stroke and curve required patience, mirroring the slow, thoughtful pace of their mental processes. In these moments, the external world receded, leaving room for introspection and the gentle shaping of new ideas. The quiet of midday also allowed for an embrace of solitude. Away from the collective discourse of daily life, philosophers could turn inward, examining their own beliefs and assumptions. This introspection was not an escape from the world, but rather a preparation to re-enter it with greater clarity and focus. The solitude offered by these hours was a fertile ground for the mind to explore its own depths, unfettered by external distractions. Such periods of quiet study were not merely about the pursuit of knowledge, but also about cultivating a sense of inner balance. In the stillness, philosophers could hone their ability to listen both to themselves and to the subtler rhythms of the world around them. This equilibrium was essential for engaging in the dynamic exchanges that filled their days, grounding their thoughts in a calm and measured approach. Throughout this time, the natural world outside continued its gentle course. Shadows lengthened slowly as the sun inched westward, casting a soft golden light that crept across the floor. The steady chirping of cicadas provided a background symphony, their repetitive song, a reminder of life's continuity beyond the confines of human thought. Such natural sound served as a soothing backdrop, enhancing the meditative quality of the midday rest. Occasionally, the philosopher might pause in their reading or writing to gaze outwards, allowing their eyes to rest from the close work of deciphering inked lines. This brief intermission was as much a part of the reflective process as the engagement with texts. It was in these moments that the mind could connect disparate ideas, allowing for the slow, imperceptible accumulation of understanding that defined a philosopher's growth. In this environment, the absence of conversation became a space where thoughts could become more refined. Without the immediate need to articulate ideas to others, the philosopher could explore them fully, testing their validity and coherence in the quiet theater of their own mind. This private dialogue was crucial, forming the backbone of the more public discussions that characterized their intellectual lives. As the sun began its gradual descent and the city stirred back into liveliness, the philosopher would emerge from this period of quiet study, carrying with them the fruits of their solitary labor. The insights gained during these hours would subtly inform their interactions, bringing a calm assurance to their words and actions. This balance between engagement and retreat, between social discourse and solitary reflection, was a defining feature of their existence. Ultimately, these midday periods of rest and quiet study were integral to the life of a philosopher. They provided the necessary counterbalance to the vibrancy of public life, allowing for a rhythm of thought that was both expansive and deeply personal. In this gentle cadence, philosophers found the space to nurture their ideas, ensuring that their contributions to the world were both thoughtful and enduring. In the quiet rhythm of ancient Greek cities, the streets echoed with the footsteps of those who pondered the nature of existence. Amongst them, philosophers wandered, their thoughts often turning towards the civic life that surrounded them. In this era, the city-state, or polis, was not only the center of political power, but also the heart of community life. For many philosophers, the polis was both a subject of contemplation and a stage for engaging with broader society. Within the bustling agora, where merchants traded and citizens debated, philosophers found a setting ripe for exploration. Some chose to advise those in power, offering insights drawn from their understanding of ethics and governance. The idea of the philosopher as a guide to rulers can be traced back to figures such as Socrates, whose dialogues often probed the nature of justice and leadership. His method of questioning and examining life encouraged others to reflect on the qualities of a good ruler and the moral responsibilities of those who govern. Yet, not all philosophers sought to influence political affairs directly. Some preferred a more observational role, critiquing the structures and decisions of those in power without engaging in the exercise of authority themselves. Their criticisms were not driven by a desire for change through direct action, but by an intellectual pursuit of truth and justice. This critical engagement allowed them to maintain a certain distance, preserving their philosophical integrity while still contributing to the discourse on governance. In contrast, there were those who deliberately avoided the political sphere altogether. For these philosophers, the entanglements of political life were distractions from the pursuit of wisdom. They viewed the quest for political power as a potential source of corruption, diverting the mind from the contemplation of higher truths. By remaining on the periphery of political life, they could focus on their philosophical inquiries, unencumbered by the demands and compromises of civic duty. While some philosophers advised and others critiqued, the notion of philosopher kings, as imagined by Plato, presented an ideal where rulers possessed both wisdom and authority. This concept highlighted the potential for harmonious governance led by those who understood the deeper principles of justice and virtue. Although this ideal was rarely realized, it underscored the belief that philosophy could offer valuable insights into the art of governance. The engagement of philosophers with politics was further complicated by the diverse political landscapes of the Greek city-states. In democratic Athens, the open exchange of ideas was encouraged, providing fertile ground for philosophical discussion. Here, the very fabric of society was woven with debate and dialogue, offering philosophers ample opportunity to influence public thought. However, in more oligarchic or authoritarian states, the role of the philosopher was often constrained, their ideas less welcome in the corridors of power. Despite these challenges, the presence of philosophers in public life was a testament to the enduring value of dialogue between thought and action. Their interactions with political structures, whether through advice, critique, or avoidance, contributed to the ongoing discourse on the nature of governance and the responsibilities of those who wield power. Over time, these philosophical engagements with politics helped to shape the evolving understanding of civic life and its ethical dimensions. As the sun cast long shadows over the city, the philosophers continued their reflections, considering the delicate balance between thought and action. In their musings, they recognized that while political power could shape the world, it was the contemplation of ideas that provided the foundation for lasting change. Thus, they walked the line between engagement and detachment, their thoughts drifting between the ideals of philosophy and the realities of political life. In this timeless dance between philosophy and politics, the legacy of these thinkers endures. Their reflections on governance, justice, and ethics continue to resonate, offering insights into the complex interplay between human thought and the structures that govern our lives. As the city settled into the twilight, the philosopher's quiet contemplation served as a reminder of the enduring quest for understanding amidst the ever-changing currents of civic life. In the quiet hum of ancient Greek streets, the figure of the philosopher often stood out, not for any ostentatious display, but for the very essence of their being. To the ordinary citizen, philosophers could appear as enigmatic as the ideas they pondered. Admiration for their wisdom was common, yet it sat uneasily alongside whispers of ridicule and skepticism. To some, the philosopher was a figure of reverence. Their ability to weave complex thoughts into words offered a glimpse into profound truths. Such individuals were seen as custodians of wisdom, guiding others gently through the labyrinth of life's questions. Their reputation for intellect made them sought-after conversation partners, capable of elevating a simple discussion into a realm of enlightening discourse. Yet, for others, philosophers were objects of amusement. The sight of someone lost in thought, perhaps pausing mid-stride in a bustling market, seemed curious. Their seemingly impractical pursuits focused on intangible ideas rather than tangible goods could appear frivolous to those whose lives revolved around more immediate concerns. In this way, the philosopher could become the subject of gentle mockery, a figure at once respected and lightly jested upon. Beneath the surface of admiration and jest lay a layer of suspicion. The philosopher's tendency to question widely accepted beliefs and norms sometimes stirred unease. Their probing inquiries into the nature of justice, virtue, or the gods themselves could be unsettling. In a society that held tradition in high regard, such questioning was not always welcome. It challenged the comfort of certainty, prompting some to view philosophers with a wary eye. Fame, too, played its part. Some philosophers became renowned far beyond their immediate circles. Their names, carried on the winds of oral tradition, reached distant lands. With fame came a mix of respect and caricature, as stories of their lives and teachings spread, often simplified or exaggerated. Such tales could transform a philosopher into a legendary figure, whose real life was shrouded in layers of myth. Philosophers navigated this complex web of perceptions with varying degrees of awareness. For some, public perception mattered little. Their focus remained steadfastly on the pursuit of knowledge, indifferent to how they were perceived. Others, however, were acutely aware of their reputation, understanding that public perception could influence their ability to teach and engage with others. The philosopher's relationship with society was thus a delicate balance. On one hand, they needed the public sphere to engage in discourse and share their ideas. On the other, their very nature often set them apart, placing them in a position of both insider and outsider. This duality was a quiet, persistent companion, shaping their interactions with the world around them. In daily life, this complex standing allowed philosophers to engage with a diverse array of people. The marketplace, a hub of social interaction, offered a stage for impromptu debates and discussions. Here, the philosopher could be both teacher and learner, surrounded by the vibrant tapestry of everyday life. Such interactions were invaluable, offering insights into the human condition that no solitary contemplation could provide. For the citizenry, the presence of philosophers added depth to the social fabric. They were reminders of the value of reflective thought amidst the routine of daily existence. Whether viewed with respect, humor, or caution, philosophers occupied a unique space within the community, their lives and works woven into the broader narrative of Greek society. In this way, the philosopher's existence was a dance between public perception and personal conviction. They lived in a world where their ideas could inspire as easily as they could provoke. Over time, their contributions to thought and culture quietly accumulated, leaving an indelible mark on the world, even if their daily lives remained a blend of admiration, ridicule, and suspicion. The legacy of these thinkers would endure, shaped as much by how they were perceived as by what they believed. As the sun began its descent, casting gentle hues across the Greek landscape, the day naturally shifted into a period of quiet contemplation and social gathering. The evening air, cooler and more forgiving, welcomed philosophers and their companions to the symposium. This was not merely a dinner, but a cherished ritual woven into the fabric of their lives, where the mind could wander freely, unfettered by the demands of daily tasks. The symposium often took place in a private home, its setting intimate yet unpretentious. Here, guests reclined on couches arranged around low tables, creating a circle that invited open dialogue. The air was filled with a subtle perfume of olive oil lamps, their soft glow casting flickering shadows that danced on the walls. Such evenings began with a simple meal, often a selection of bread, olives, and cheese, allowing the body to be satisfied and the mind to focus. Wine was an integral part of the symposium, consumed with a mindfulness that embraced moderation. It was common to dilute the wine with water, a practice that sustained conversation without dulling the senses. This gentle indulgence was believed to open the mind, allowing thoughts to flow with a grace and ease that the harsh light of day sometimes suppressed. Conversation at the symposium was an art in itself. It meandered gently, touching upon philosophy, poetry, and the events of the day. Attendees would share stories, often with a philosophical undercurrent that invited reflection rather than debate. These narratives were not crafted for drama or persuasion, but rather for the simple pleasure of shared thought. Storytelling during these evenings was a communal act, where each participant contributed to the tapestry of dialogue. Myths and fables, familiar yet open to interpretation, served as a backdrop for exploring deeper truths. By engaging with these tales, philosophers found a way to express complex ideas in a manner that was accessible and relatable, allowing wisdom to emerge naturally from the fabric of the story. As the evening unfolded, the symposiarch, or host, might propose a theme for discussion, guiding the conversation with a light touch. This theme could be drawn from a variety of sources: an observation of nature, a line of poetry, or a question that lingered from earlier in the day. The aim was not to reach a conclusion, but to explore the theme from multiple angles, each insight adding depth to the evening's discourse. The symposium offered a space where silence was as valuable as speech. Participants were encouraged to listen deeply, allowing the words of others to resonate before responding. This deliberate pace fostered an environment where ideas could be considered thoughtfully, and where the pauses between words held as much significance as the words themselves. Amidst these gatherings, it was not uncommon for music to provide a gentle accompaniment. The soft playing of a lyre or the distant echo of a flute would blend with the murmur of voices, creating a harmonious backdrop that soothed the spirit. Music, like wine, was a conduit for reflection, enhancing the atmosphere without demanding attention. As the evening drew on, the conversation might turn towards personal reflections, where philosophers shared insights gained from their daily lives. These moments offered a window into the individual experiences that shaped their thoughts, revealing the interconnectedness of life and philosophy. Such personal anecdotes were not shared for sympathy or admiration, but simply as a means of connecting the personal with the universal. The symposium was an opportunity to cultivate friendships and camaraderie, where bonds were strengthened through shared inquiry and mutual respect. It was here that the seeds of future dialogues were often sown, as ideas exchanged in the evening would linger in the mind, ready to blossom in the days to come. As the night deepened, the gathering would slowly wind down. The conversation might become more leisurely, interspersed with quiet laughter and the occasional yawn. The participants, content with the evening's discourse, would eventually take their leave, each departing with a sense of fulfillment and a mind gently enriched by the exchange. In reflecting upon these evenings, one sees how the symposium was more than a social event. It was a practice, a way of life that valued the simple pleasures of food, drink, and companionship, woven together by the threads of thoughtful conversation. Through these gatherings, philosophers nurtured a community of inquiry, where the pursuit of wisdom was a shared endeavor, carried out in the soft, reflective glow of the night. In the gentle flow of ancient Greek society, learning was less a structured endeavor and more an organic process. The notion of formal institutions as we know them today did not dominate the landscape. Instead, knowledge was shared through personal interactions, guided by the authority and reputation of individuals rather than formal credentials. This was a world where wisdom was often passed from person to person in a manner that was as informal as it was profound. Philosophers, those seekers of wisdom, were at the heart of this process. Teaching took place in open spaces, in the midst of everyday life, where ideas were exchanged freely. The absence of structured institutions meant that the authority to teach came not from a title or a degree, but from the depth of one's understanding and the ability to inspire thought in others. A philosopher's influence was measured by the respect and trust they commanded among their peers and followers. In this environment, the role of the teacher was inherently personal. The process of learning was often a shared journey, where the relationship between teacher and student was marked by mutual respect and a common pursuit of knowledge. This dynamic allowed for a fluid exchange of ideas, where both parties could learn and grow together. The lack of formal curriculum meant that the direction of study was often guided by the interests and questions that naturally arose during conversation. Learning without institutions also encouraged a focus on dialogue. The act of teaching was not confined to lectures, but was instead a continuous conversation. Through questions and answers, thoughts were refined and explored. This method ensured that learning was adaptable and responsive, evolving with the needs and curiosities of those involved. The absence of rigid structures allowed for a learning experience that was as flexible as it was engaging. The personal nature of this teaching style also meant that learning was deeply tied to the character and integrity of the teacher. Philosophers were expected to embody the virtues they espoused, serving as living examples of their teachings. This personal authenticity was crucial, as it was the foundation upon which a philosopher's authority rested. Without the backing of formal institutions, it was the philosopher's reputation that sustained their ability to teach and influence others. Furthermore, the informal nature of this learning environment fostered a sense of community. Philosophers often gathered with their students in public spaces, engaging with the world around them. These gatherings were not just about imparting knowledge, but were also opportunities to cultivate a shared understanding of the world. The vibrant exchange of ideas helped to build connections and foster a sense of belonging among those who participated. In many ways, this approach to teaching and learning was a reflection of the broader Greek emphasis on the communal aspects of life. The informal gatherings and discussions mirrored the social interactions of the polis, where citizens engaged in dialogue to shape their collective future. The philosopher's role in this process was to guide and facilitate, helping others to think critically and engage with the world in meaningful ways. The absence of formal institutions also meant that philosophers were often self-directed learners. Without a set curriculum, they explored a wide range of topics, driven by their own curiosity and desire to understand. This approach encouraged a breadth of knowledge and a holistic view of the world. Philosophers were not limited by disciplinary boundaries, but were free to draw connections across different areas of thought. The reliance on personal authority in teaching also meant that knowledge was transmitted through a lineage of thinkers. Students who learned from a philosopher would often go on to teach others, creating a continuous chain of knowledge that spanned generations. This process ensured that philosophical ideas were preserved and developed over time, even in the absence of formal institutions. In this way, learning without institutions was both a challenge and an opportunity. It required philosophers to be self-motivated and resourceful, seeking out knowledge and refining their ideas through engagement with others. At the same time, it allowed for a deeply personal and adaptable approach to education, where learning was shaped by the needs and interests of those involved. Ultimately, the absence of formal institutions did not hinder the pursuit of knowledge in ancient Greece. Instead, it fostered a rich and dynamic intellectual culture, where learning was a shared journey guided by the wisdom and authority of individuals. This approach to education, characterized by its flexibility and personal nature, left a lasting legacy on the world, influencing the way we think about learning even today. In the quiet rhythm of ancient Greek life, existing as a philosopher meant navigating a world where the pursuit of wisdom was not always synonymous with material wealth. Unlike the merchants and artisans who populated the bustling marketplaces, philosophers lived in a realm where ideas were the currency of choice. Yet, the mundane necessities of life required attention, and the balance between thought and livelihood was delicately maintained through a network of gifts, teaching fees, and the benevolence of admirers. In this landscape, financial stability was neither guaranteed nor taken for granted. Philosophers often relied on the generosity of patrons who found value in their intellectual pursuits. These patrons, typically wealthy citizens, saw the support of a philosopher as both a personal enrichment and a contribution to the cultural prestige of their community. Through patronage, philosophers were free to explore the vast expanse of thought without the immediate burden of economic hardship. It was a subtle dance of mutual benefit, where the exchange of ideas was as precious as any coin. The role of teaching was another avenue through which philosophers ensured their sustenance. In exchange for sharing their insights and guiding others through the labyrinth of knowledge, philosophers received fees from those eager to learn. Teaching was often conducted in informal settings, be it under the shade of a tree or within the open spaces of a city square. This sharing of wisdom was not so much a transaction as it was a tradition, rooted in the belief that knowledge should flow freely, albeit with some compensation for the time and effort of the teacher. Beyond the formal arrangements of patronage and teaching, philosophers occasionally received gifts from admirers and followers. These tokens, whether in the form of food, clothing, or shelter, were gestures of respect and appreciation. They symbolized a recognition of the philosopher's role in society, not as a provider of physical goods, but as a cultivator of the mind. Such offerings carried a quiet affirmation of the philosopher's place within the community, a reminder that even in the absence of material wealth, their presence held value. At times, the philosopher's life was marked by simplicity and frugality. With minimal possessions, they often adopted a lifestyle that mirrored their philosophical ideals. Austerity was not merely a necessity, but a choice that reflected a focus on the immaterial. It aligned with the teachings of those who believed that true wealth lay in the richness of thought rather than the accumulation of goods. This approach to living allowed philosophers to remain unencumbered by the distractions of affluence, fostering an environment where contemplation could flourish. The absence of regular income also encouraged a sense of community among philosophers. They often formed close-knit groups, supporting each other through shared resources and collaborative efforts. In these circles, the exchange of ideas was as vital as the sharing of meals, and the bonds formed were strengthened by a common pursuit of understanding. This fellowship provided a safety net, a collective resilience that buffered against the uncertainties of a life dedicated to philosophy. Occasionally, philosophers engaged in more practical endeavors to secure their livelihoods. Some took on roles as advisors or scribes, applying their analytical skills to real-world problems. This intersection of philosophical thought and practical application demonstrated the versatility of their knowledge. It highlighted the relevance of philosophical inquiry beyond the abstract, showing that wisdom could indeed serve the tangible needs of society. Despite these efforts, the life of a philosopher was not without its challenges. The unpredictability of patronage and the varying demand for teaching meant that financial security was often elusive. Philosophers had to navigate these uncertainties with a calm acceptance, maintaining a focus on the greater purpose of their work. It was a testament to their dedication that, even in the face of material scarcity, the pursuit of wisdom remained a guiding light. In this delicate balance between thought and survival, philosophers embodied a unique aspect of Greek society. They exemplified the notion that the pursuit of knowledge was a worthy endeavor, one that transcended the immediate concerns of everyday life. Their existence was a quiet assertion that, in the grand tapestry of human experience, the life of the mind held a special place, woven together with threads of curiosity, support, and resilience. Thus, the financial aspects of a philosopher's life were interwoven with the intellectual fabric of their existence. Through a combination of patronage, teaching, gifts, and practical engagements, they crafted a life that, while not always materially affluent, was rich in thought and community. It was a testament to the enduring value of philosophy, where the quest for understanding was both a personal journey and a shared legacy. In the gentle passage of time, a Greek philosopher's journey from youth to old age unfolds like the slow turning of the seasons. Early days, filled with the vigor of inquiry and the exuberance of youthful debate, gradually give way to the contemplative rhythms of maturity. It is a life shaped by a steady accumulation of knowledge, where each experience, each conversation, and each moment of insight quietly builds upon the last. With the passage of years, the philosopher transitions from the eager student to the wise teacher, a transformation marked by the deepening of understanding rather than the acquisition of new facts. As the philosopher ages, the bustling streets and lively agoras of the city become more familiar, their patterns and sounds woven into the fabric of everyday thought. Walking along these well-trodden paths, the philosopher reflects on the conversations held there, the ideas exchanged beneath the open sky. Each step is a reminder of a lifetime spent in pursuit of wisdom, where learning is not merely an activity but a way of being, a continuous flow of thought that knows no beginning or end. In the early years, the philosopher's mind was like a sponge, absorbing the teachings of older, more experienced thinkers. These formative years were marked by an eagerness to question and challenge, to push the boundaries of accepted knowledge. The young philosopher sought out mentors, engaging in dialogues that would shape their understanding of the world. With time, the roles began to reverse, and the philosopher found themselves in the position of guide, passing on the torch of wisdom to a new generation of seekers. The transition from student to teacher is a gradual one, marked by subtle shifts in perspective. The questions that once seemed urgent and pressing become softer, their edges rounded by experience. The philosopher learns to listen more than speak, to guide rather than direct. Teaching becomes a collaborative endeavor, a shared journey where both teacher and student learn from one another. It is a process of gentle unfolding, where the philosopher's accumulated experience serves as a steadying influence, a quiet assurance that even the most complex questions can be approached with patience and humility. With each passing year, the philosopher's understanding of the world grows deeper, enriched by the diversity of human experience. The lessons learned from a lifetime of observation and reflection are shared through stories and analogies, the simplicity of which belies their profound depth. The philosopher learns to appreciate the nuances of life, the way small changes accumulate over time to create the rich tapestry of human existence. In this way, the philosopher becomes a living repository of knowledge, a bridge between the past and the present. As age advances, the philosopher's focus often shifts towards the inner life, the quiet space where thoughts are given room to breathe and settle. The external world, with its constant demands and distractions, becomes less central, while the internal landscape takes on a new significance. It is in these moments of solitude that the philosopher finds clarity, a deeper understanding of themselves and their place in the world. Through meditation and reflection, they explore the boundaries of thought, pushing gently against the limits of human understanding. The philosopher's later years are marked not by a diminishing of curiosity, but by its refinement. The questions become fewer, but deeper, each one an exploration of the fundamental truths that underpin existence. The philosopher learns to embrace ambiguity, to sit comfortably with uncertainty, recognizing that not all questions have answers and that some truths are beyond human comprehension. This acceptance is not a resignation, but a liberation, a release from the need for certainty that allows the philosopher to engage with the world more fully. In the twilight of their years, the philosopher's thoughts often turn to the legacy they will leave behind. They reflect on the impact of their teachings, the lives they have touched, and the ideas they have shared. This legacy is not measured in fame or recognition, but in the quiet influence exerted over others, the seeds of thought planted in fertile minds that will continue to grow and evolve long after the philosopher has departed. It is a legacy of ideas, a testament to a life spent in pursuit of understanding and wisdom. As the days grow shorter and the shadows longer, the philosopher finds solace in the knowledge that their journey is part of a much larger tapestry, one that extends beyond the confines of individual experience. They recognize that their life, with all its questions and uncertainties, is but a small thread in the vast fabric of human thought. This realization brings a sense of peace, a gentle acceptance of the natural cycle of life and death, and the philosopher approaches the end of their journey with quiet dignity and grace. In the end, the philosopher's life is remembered not for its moments of triumph or despair, but for its steady commitment to the pursuit of truth. It is a life marked by a quiet perseverance, a willingness to question and explore, to learn and to teach. As the philosopher reflects on a lifetime of thought, they find comfort in the knowledge that their journey has been one of discovery and growth, a testament to the enduring power of human curiosity and the endless search for understanding. In the gentle passage of time, a philosopher's life reaches its natural end, leaving behind whispers of thought and contemplation. The end of a philosopher's earthly journey is not merely a cessation, but a transition into a new form, one of legacy and memory. Ancient Greek philosophers, those architects of reason and inquiry, were often remembered in ways that blended fact and interpretation, their lives woven into the tapestry of history by those who followed. As the philosophers' presence faded, their ideas often took on a life of their own. Followers, students, and admirers carried forward the essence of their thoughts, sometimes distilling complex teachings into simpler narratives. The process of remembering was an act of selection, where certain aspects were highlighted while others were gently set aside. This simplification was neither wholly inaccurate nor deceitful, but rather a natural consequence of oral traditions and the passage of time. The legacy of a philosopher was shaped not only by their own teachings, but also by the interpretations of those who came after. In the absence of modern recording methods, ideas were shared through dialogues, written on scrolls, and recounted in conversations. Each retelling added a layer of interpretation, subtly altering the original message. Over generations, these stories tended to crystallize into accepted truths, often elevating the philosopher to a symbolic status, embodying virtues and wisdom that resonated with the cultural values of the time. Memory was not solely the domain of admirers. Critics and opponents also played a role in shaping a philosopher's posthumous reputation. Disagreements and debates continued beyond the philosopher's life, with detractors occasionally using the opportunity to reinterpret teachings in a less favorable light. The result was a nuanced legacy, reflecting both admiration and skepticism, each contributing to the enduring image of the philosopher. In the broader context of classical Greece, the recording of philosophical lives was also influenced by the social and political climate. Philosophers who engaged with civic life often left behind records that intertwined with the histories of the cities they inhabited. Their ideas, sometimes controversial or revolutionary, were documented within the annals of civic life, remembered as much for their impact on society as for their intellectual contributions. The transition from life to legacy was also marked by the rituals of remembrance. Funerary customs, though varied across regions, often included gatherings where stories and teachings were shared, ensuring that the philosopher's presence lingered in the minds of those who gathered. These rituals served as a bridge between the tangible and the intangible, a moment where the philosopher's life was celebrated and their ideas reaffirmed. In the quiet moments of reflection that followed a philosopher's passing, those left behind were tasked with the continuation of thought. The role of the student shifted from one of learning to one of preserving and expanding upon the teachings received. This continuation was not a static preservation, but a dynamic evolution, where new ideas were infused into established doctrines, ensuring relevance across changing times. The philosopher's legacy was also shaped by artistic expressions. Statues, paintings, and inscriptions captured the essence of a life dedicated to thought. These artistic representations, while not always striving for realism, conveyed the inner qualities admired by society. The philosopher was often depicted in a contemplative pose, a visual metaphor for a life of inquiry and reflection. Over time, the philosopher's name became a symbol, evoking a set of ideas and ideals that transcended the individual. This symbolic status was a testament to the enduring power of thought, an acknowledgement of the profound impact that a single life dedicated to philosophy could have on the world. The philosopher, though departed from the realm of the living, continued to exist in the realm of ideas, influencing generations yet to come. As centuries passed, the task of remembering was taken up by scholars and historians who sifted through fragments of text and oral traditions to piece together the stories of these ancient thinkers. Their work was an act of preservation, an effort to maintain the continuity of philosophical thought across the ages. In their hands, the philosopher's life was both a subject of study and a source of inspiration, a reminder of the timeless pursuit of knowledge and understanding. In the end, the legacy of a Greek philosopher was not confined to the boundaries of their own time. It reached forward, touching the minds and hearts of those who sought wisdom in the echoes of the past. The philosopher's life, though finite in years, became infinite in influence, a gentle yet persistent presence in the ongoing exploration of truth and meaning. Through the quiet persistence of memory, the philosopher's journey continued, a testament to the enduring power of thought and the unending quest for understanding. In the gentle twilight of a philosopher's life, one finds a peculiar kind of peace. This peace is not born from answers firmly grasped, for answers were never the intended destination. Rather, it emerges from a life given to the pursuit of understanding, where each question asked was a step along an unending path. The philosopher moves through the world with a purpose not defined by the accumulation of knowledge, but by the clarity that comes with perpetual inquiry. The landscape of thought is vast, its boundaries uncharted, much like the horizon stretching beyond view. Within this expanse, the philosopher dwells, navigating ideas as one might navigate the stars. The constellations of logic, ethics, and metaphysics form a celestial map, guiding the mind's journey through the night of uncertainty. In this way, philosophy becomes less about conclusions and more about the constancy of exploration, akin to a river that flows without demanding to know where it ends. Over time, the philosopher learns that understanding is not a static achievement, but a dynamic process. Ideas, like rivers, shift and meander, eroding rigid convictions and shaping new landscapes of thought. Through dialogue and reflection, these ideas are refined, not to be held as immutable truths, but as evolving insights that deepen with each contemplation. This gradual refinement is a gentle unfolding, where each layer of complexity peels back to reveal another, inviting further wonder. In the quiet of the mind, where solitude and thought intermingle, the philosopher finds room to ponder the nature of existence. Here, without the distractions of daily life, one can dwell on the timeless questions that have echoed through the ages. What is the nature of reality? How should one live a good life? These questions, though ancient, remain ever fresh in the philosopher's consideration, like the perennial bloom of a flower that awaits the first light of dawn. As the years pass, the philosopher's engagement with the world takes on a different hue. The fervent debates of youth mellow into conversations rich with patience and humility. There is a recognition that one's own perspective is but a single note in the symphony of human thought. Listening becomes as vital as speaking, and in the quiet spaces between words, new understandings emerge. It is in this openness to change that true wisdom is found, not as a possession, but as an ongoing dialogue with the world. The philosopher's life, though often marked by solitude, is not one of isolation. Instead, it is deeply connected to the fabric of human experience. Through the sharing of ideas, through teaching and learning, the philosopher becomes part of a continuum, contributing to the collective knowledge that transcends individual lifetimes. This sharing is not done for personal gain, but out of a sense of duty to the pursuit of truth, however elusive it may be. In reflection, the philosopher acknowledges the limitations of human understanding. There is a serene acceptance that some mysteries will remain unsolved, some questions unanswered. Yet, this acceptance is not a resignation, but a recognition of the beauty inherent in the unknown. The philosopher learns to embrace uncertainty, finding comfort in the vastness of what remains to be discovered. It is this embrace that allows the philosophical mind to remain curious and open, even in the face of life's greatest mysteries. As the sun sets on a life of thought, the philosopher contemplates the legacy left behind, not in terms of fame or recognition, but in the quiet influence of ideas shared and minds inspired. The true measure of a philosophical life lies not in monuments or accolades, but in the subtle shifts of perception that ripple through generations, like the gentle waves set in motion by a single stone cast into a still pond. In the end, the philosopher's journey is one of continual becoming, a testament to the enduring power of inquiry. It is a life spent not in the pursuit of certainty, but in the embrace of the questions that define our humanity. As the final chapter draws to a close, there is a quiet satisfaction in knowing that the search for understanding is itself a noble endeavor, one that enriches the soul and illuminates the mind, guiding us through the vast and wondrous landscape of thought.